It was a morning like every other morning, and she drove her children to school every morning. This particular morning, something changed on the road. As she was driving, she said to her little girl, "Don't get frightened, look behind and tell me if there are any cars approaching." And the little girl, very astute, said, "No problem, Mum." She looked behind and said, "You can now pull off the road." And she did. And the little girl said, "What's going on?" And the mother said, "No need to worry. God's in control, but I cannot see." And the little girl said, "Do you want me to drive?" 8-year-old child. And the mother said, "Don't worry, we'll get you to school. I just need a few moments of repo. I need to pray and I need to get you to school, and then I will go to a doctor." So she pulled over, as I said. She had a word of prayer. She couldn't see much. It was almost as if there was a veil over her eyes. But nevertheless, she sat there for some moments, and her little girl was very frightened. But nevertheless, she trusted. And after about 15 minutes, she said, "Okay, we are going to go very slowly, but I need you to be another set of eyes. Don't be scared. I can see, but I want you to look out with me. Tell me when I can pull over." It was only a short 5-minute drive to get her daughter to school, and she got her to school. She parked the car and she walked down to the closest shops, which was only a 10-minute walk. She went into an optician. You know, they have the opticians, Oculus, in the centers. And she said, "I need an urgent checkup." And the optician said, "Sure, come on in. Let's have a look at your eyes." And he said, "You need to get to the hospital immediately. I am seeing black dots and I don't understand why they are there." So she called a taxi and got herself to the hospital, and her mum was called in, and she was, from that day, in and out of hospital for over a year, being treated with any and every kind of medication. The doctors trialed everything on her, to the point she began to understand 1 year later, $45,000 later, nobody can tell me what's going on. So she decided she would Google and find a special doctor who knew what natural medicine was. And so she was busy on her computer until somebody significant jumped out for her. Why was it significant? Because he stated that he's a doctor, but he does natural therapies. She called the doctor, she booked the appointment, and she went to see him. She expressed her dismay at her doctor trialing every week, every month, for a whole year, medication upon medication. And she just burst into tears on the last visitation, and her doctor had said to her, "Let us try." And she said to this new doctor, "Try, am I a guinea pig?" And the doctor said, "I need to share something very important with you. We doctors do 5 years of medicine and 30 minutes of nutrition. Now, why don't you go home and study? I have a machine I can put you on. It's $1,000. And we may get to the bottom of things." May get to the bottom of things for $1,000, she said. And she left there in tears, went home, but took on what the doctor had said to her. She opened her laptop and she Googled. And she said, "You know what? I am going to do exactly what he said." And I did. And here I am today. I can share exactly what happened to me. The doctors had no idea I'd lost my eyesight. I couldn't see for... The distance was so small. I was bumping into poles. I had a forehead that was swollen and thick because I was banging into everything. My license was taken away from me. I was also a single mother with 4 children, and I couldn't understand why this was happening. However, I took on board what he'd said, and that day I decided life will change, not only for me, but everybody else who comes in my path. Because I believe that sometimes doctors don't know what to do or what's happening in a system, no fault of theirs, because they spend 5 years in training from books and they learn that this needs this medication. This pain, you need that. Your left arm, if you move it up and down, it causes that. If it's not doing that, we need to do this. They learn from books. They don't go outside the square because they don't understand nutrition. And that for me was vitally important. And so I am very, very grateful because I went to America and I studied in America. As you've heard Tina, I don't need to explain anymore. But I'm so grateful to be sharing my story and talking to you about what I've learned. One of the first things I learned in America was New Start. Now you will notice I added the A onto a new start because I believe for many of us, excuse me, could I get some water? Sorry. Pardon me. For many of us, it is a new start as it was for me. I needed a brand new start because I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I did not know the human body. I didn't understand the physiology. I did not know that what I ate was affecting me. I did not know anything, but the final results were I had a stroke that went undetected. Thank you so much. I had fibromyalgia, I had chronic fatigue, I had Helicobacter, I had 6 autoimmune diseases. All went undiagnosed. Back then they weren't looking at autoimmune diseases, but I actually self-diagnosed once I'd done my training, and I was able to work on myself and bring myself to full restoration, and I'm very grateful for New Start. Now the reason why I added the letter A is because I believe attitude is so very important to everything we do. Is it possible that 90% of all diseases are caused by negative attitudes and emotions? I believe absolutely right. The more people I see, whether it's cancer, whether it's whatever diseases they have, the brain, the mind is actually controlling those diseases as well. The way you think is going to control your body, because we actually have a connection between the brain and the gut, and that is called a vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve shoots toxins into your gut every time you stress, every time you worry, every time you think negative thoughts. It's shooting toxins into your gut, notwithstanding the amount of illness we are seeing in the gut today. Yeah? Attitude is the most important point for every aspect of your life. And we're going to be expanding on these in our training classes. I'm laying a foundation for you today, so you know the expectation of what I'm going to be teaching. And along with these points, we're going to be also going into very practical teaching. Our psychological state, the way we choose to respond to stress in our individual lives, creates a central nervous system response. I have people coming to me over and over again. Their doctors no longer can help them. They just say, I'm sorry, go home, sort out your affairs, and we are now going to prepare for the worst. I've had many people come. I'm going to play an interview for you later of a gentleman that came to me many years ago, and that was the case. His doctors could not even medicate him because the medication was having such negative effects, and that is why I believe medication is not always necessary. What I found with him was his whole nervous system was literally shot down, and that was causing everything negative for him. His high blood pressure was shooting through the roof. He had issues in his heart. He had palpitations every night, all night. He was not sleeping. His weight went from about 75 kilos down. By the time he got to our property, he was weighing about 49 kilos. And that's very thin for a man who is I believe he was 165, 67, something like that. Very, very thin. And within 2 weeks, he was stabilized because nobody could help him. I said to him, well, let's work on you. Nervous system. I took his bloods, live and dry blood analysis, and I found through the bloods that it was the nervous system, so I knew where to start to work with him. So it is very important for us to actually have our attitudes right, because it will cause so much issues. Research has shown that your attitude is the most important factor in determining how well you do in life, how well you excel in life, how well your body is going to heal. Because the more you have self-negative spiel to yourself, the more you are telling yourself what's happening in your body, and the more you're going to experience those issues. Developing a positive attitude demands massive change. I always say to people, an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of I can, an attitude of I can do it. However, I can do it. There we go. See, I can do it. So we need to develop that attitude and see what happens. It works. The first step that we need to take is to face up to the need for change. That's where many people go wrong. They want to be healed, but they're not willing to accept that something in their mindset needs to change first. And I'm glad you are here because I can show you all of these things as we're learning. Thoughts drive your emotions, what you think you become. You become full of fear, you become an angry little man, you can become a happy little woman, you can be whatever you want to be based on your mindset. Now, as I said in the beginning, I am Christian. So for me, I know that my connection with God helps me through everything. Everybody has their own way of dealing with things, but we're going to talk about this in the four primary foods. Your thoughts become your words, and then what happens? Your words become your actions, don't they? And then your actions become your habits. Your habits become your character. So when your character is not such a good character, think about what your thought process is. And you know what's going to happen? Your character is going to determine your final destination. Where you end up, how you end up. So it is time for us to really think about our attitudes, our mindset. So would you rather have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? These are things we're going to expand on, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But I thought just a few things for you to see. Growth. I can try a different strategy. It's not working for me, but if I do this, quite possibly something good will come out of it. Is this really my best work? I'm sure I can do better than that, right? This may take some time and effort, but I'm so determined, I'm willing to put the hard yarn in. Or you could say, oh, I can't do this. It's not going to happen. This work, no. It's just not going to happen. It's just all too hard. Is that the way we're going to go forward? I don't think so. So we now come to the next letter of our acronym, N, for nutrition. Nutrition is something that I focus a lot on. The old saying, you are what you eat, is being illustrated more and more every day. I've put two little emoticons showing you the different foods, and I am going to cross over to that side, Mr. Cameraman, if that's okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about food whilst we are here. As you can see, I've got some wonderful team with me, and everybody has done something to help me. And this looks wonderful. It's put together in a way that showcases everything we need to have in our body. And nothing that we shouldn't have in our body is here. There's no pizza. There's no soft drinks. Absolutely none.
No lollies.
No lollies. Where's
No meat. No meat. No chicken. Absolutely not.
We have water. We have a NutriBullet, which I'm going to explain as we talk about nutrition. I don't know if everyone's staying after lunch as well. If you aren't, I will go through a few things. Is everybody staying after lunch, or is you all here after lunch? Great. How about I do the explaining after lunch? Then I can just stay here and film instead of bouncing across. You all okay with that? Yeah. Because I've got a lot of explaining to do, which is going to help every one of you here today. So let us continue. I'm being careful with this cable. It's very touchy. So nutrition, not only do we make and remake cells of our body from the food we eat, but foods can be healing or they can be damaging. I've given you an example of healing, and I've given you an example of damaging foods. They affect our mood and disposition as well as sustain life. And those unhappy little characters you saw up there possibly come when you've eaten a piece of pizza because you feel gluggy. You feel a little bit overloaded. You get bloated. Then for a few days you're constipated. I know all about pizza. I can tell you everything it does because I once upon a time ate pizza. I once upon a time drank sodas. So I'm not talking without experience. Remember, I came from not knowing to being very, very ill, to fixing up my life, my health, and here I am. One thing that I'm working on still is my memory, hence the slides, because when you've had a stroke, it really affects the brain. But you know what? After that, I couldn't remember anything. So I think I'm doing good, don't you? That I can at least remember a few things. Foods protect us from disease. They give us energy. They help us maintain strength, and they give us pleasure and enjoyment. All right, he says. And then they can add years to our life. Have you seen the little crying eyes? Who wants to have years extended? I see women every day my age that look like they're 15, 20 years older than me. And I feel very sad. And it's not because you want to look young, it's because you can just be your own age in a healthy condition. You don't have to be haggard and, because you are so sick from what you're putting into your body. So we don't want to be just adding years. Certainly nutrition is a major factor in health and disease. Now, this is a subject that trumps everyone. 4 primary foods not found on your plate. Now, these foods are more than what you find on your plate, and I talk about it all the time. In fact, I've got a beautiful flyer I've written on these 4 primary foods not found on the plate, and I would love to share it with everyone. I could email it all to you. Eating healthy, nutritional food. I think I've got it here as well. So these 4 primary foods, these are important aspects of our life. These are foods that actually fuel us on a daily basis. They're not found on our plate, but these are the foods that are healthy relationships. Have you noticed how many people who are in unhealthy relationships, whether it's husband to wife, mothers to daughters, whether it's brothers and sisters, siblings, have you noticed how they are so unhealthy? They are so miserable. They are aging because these relationships are pushing them down. Have you noticed in some of your friendships? Yeah. Yes? This is an important primary food not found on your plate. Your relationships are very important for you. The other thing that's important for you is regular physical activity, which we're going to talk about next in our acronym exercise. So our physical activity is extremely important for us. So I've got it on our 4 primary foods, not found on our plate, as well as on the acronym A New Start. Then we have spiritual practice. Now, when I did my training with Integrative Nutrition, they are in New York. They are non-Christian. They are what you would call New Age. I did the training, but I didn't do any of the practices. They were saying to us, now sit down, cross your leg, and meditate. And I was sitting there and I was praying. So spirituality comes in that form as well. Please, please. Thank you. Oh, we'll wait. So spirituality comes in many forms. Some people are Buddhist. Some people are simply practicing meditation without even being Buddhist. Some people are Muslims. Some people are Hindus. Some people are Christians, of all types of Christians. I don't know many of you in here. I don't know your background, and I don't know your spirituality. However, if you have a spiritual practice, you will understand what I'm saying. Life can be very void. It is void without a spiritual practice. For most people, as soon as they find some form of spirituality, their lives are lightened up straight away. You can ask them, oh, what's happened in your life? And they'll say either, I found God, or they'll say, I've started meditating, I go to the Buddhist temple. Some form of spirituality, right? So for me, it's Christianity. For me, I believe in God. But without some form of spirituality, life is going to always be empty and void. And I believe 100% in that. And then last but not the least, no particular order, is career. Now, we spend most of our day in work, do we not? We go to work all day. We come home in the evening, we're tired, we have our dinner, we may be grumpy and sit in front of the TV. We don't even own a TV. And you may sit there and eat your pizza, and then you go to bed tired, and then you wake up all gluggy and ill with a lot of mucus, right? Career is so important. If you love your career, your job, you won't do that. You're going to be energized and excited. You're going to wake up in the morning with the zest to go to work. You're going to go, wow, what am I doing in work today? What's my project? A lot of people go, oh no, I've got work today. Oh, I wish I didn't have to work. The grind. I think my husband knows all too well about the grind. Being a school teacher, teaching high school boys and girls in a place like Northam, he knows all about the grind in these high schools. However, if you lift your spirits through, prayer and just say, Lord, show me what I can teach the kids today. And he had that experience. He chose to pray and to ask the Lord how to speak to these kids. And he told me he had amazing conversations with the children. And he was energized. Some days it was like, wow, what am I going to talk about to the boys today? Because all they want to do is exercise. They don't want to be in a classroom. So he would talk about exercise. Is exercise on our list? Absolutely. Physical activity. He would connect with the kids. And that way he had something that he could bring to the table with these children. And everybody sitting here, I don't know your careers. I believe we have some retired people. We have some professional ladies and gents. And we run a business. But we have to go to work most days. Oh. Sorry. Steve, could you take it, please? Sorry. That's my business, my staff calling me. And it never ends. Sorry, I should have left my phone in the back. Tina did say turn off your phones. You see, I don't know why I didn't. Anyway, so career is really important. You must love what you do. Do what you love. If you chose something you didn't want to choose when you were young because your parents pushed you on, it's never too late to make that change. Find that thing in your soul, in your heart that, we're given God-given talents. Every one of us here has talents. I don't think I'm ever going to stop working. I always say to my husband, I'm almost at retiree age. He goes, pardon? You're never going to retire. He knows what I'm like. I'm always buzzing and busy and excited to do the next project. So we need to be excited about what we do. Otherwise, if we're not, it's going to drain us. Work, your career is going to drain you. Exercise, the most hated subject, which we all need to remember. Exercise is an essential law that governs the human body. The two best forms of exercise are gardening and walking. Everything else in between is up to you what you do. These two are free. These two, you're breathing fresh air, which we're going to talk about. Gardening brings you food. It brings you so much food. And, you know, gardening is a phenomenal way of exercising because you're doing squats, right? You're doing your bends, you know, you're getting your back, you're doing your lifting, then you're raking. Raking does a lot of, you know, exercise and also keeps your heart rate up. And then you go from one end of the garden to the other because now you've got to carry the leaves and then you've got to put the leaves on under the trees, and it's a great form of exercise. And walking is fantastic. If you can find a good place to walk in the fresh air, maybe along the water or maybe near a river, wherever you can. Perth has beautiful places. I don't know where you live, but we live in the country on a 5-acre property, and our road is like that. So we do 3 big uphills, 3 big downhills, and by the time I get home, it's wonderful. It really is energizing. So exercise, very important for us. We have different muscles that need different exercise. Gardening hits them all. Walking's going to be your cardio, which your heart needs, and the gardening's going to be everything else. So fantastic. And I know we've got some avid gardeners in here. I know my friends from Poland love gardening, don't you? I know they really love gardening. I know Michael and his sister. And then, of course, water. What is about water that can make us whole? I'm going to share a story with you about water. Okay, on May the 2nd in 1803, Napoleon's Minister of Finance, Marquis Francois de Barbe, and the US envoys Robert Livingston and James Monroe signed the Louisiana Purchase Agreement in Paris for $15 million. The United States had purchased 830,000 square miles and had doubled in size. President Thomas Jefferson immediately arranged an expedition to explore this very vast and brand new area to the west. And on May the 14th, 1804, Meriwether Lewis and Williams Clark set sail about the Missouri River. How exciting would that have been? I would have loved to have been on that adventure. 6 months later, after barely avoiding a fatal battle with the Sioux, winter forced them to halt in what is now North Dakota. Have any of you heard this story before? Next spring, they pushed on into the uncharted wilderness and narrowly escaped death from an attacking bear, a capsized boat, and a charging bear as well on a second occasion. And then they rescued one of their number nearly fallen over a precipice and climbed what one of them later described as the most terrible mountains I ever beheld. What an expedition. I still wish I was there. Following the Snake and Columbia River, they finally reached the Pacific coast on November 1805 and then barely escaped drowning in the Pacific on March the 23rd, 1806. These explorers turned their faces homeward. Back east, President Jefferson had heard rumors that they were all shot. No, they weren't. They were on a very difficult, traumatic journey. They were shot, they were tomahawked or worse. Meanwhile, as Jefferson conferred with his advisors about this, Lewis and Clark and their expedition were portaging the waterfalls of the Columbia. How exciting. And encountering a wild Indian in the Northwest who was bent on killing most of them. They survived. On April 27th, the voyageurs reached the land of the Walla Walla Indians and then headed into the Nez Perce country of Idaho. By that time, William Bratton, one of the men in the party, was experiencing such intense pelvic pain that he could go no farther. And Captain Clark was a physician. But none of the medicines he carried worked. Are you surprised? I'm not. Then John Shields told them what to do. While the party pitched camp, Shields dug a massive hole in the ground. It was 3 feet across and 4 feet deep. And you can come and have this experience on my property very soon when we find it and move. They lined it with massive rocks and kindled a fire in the bottom to heat all the stones, and as soon as they were hot, the fire was extinguished. And Bratton was put naked, very carefully lowered on a seat that was suspended over the hole. What was that making? Can anybody guess? Steam. Sauna. Wow. And they put a blanket over him. They had the poles and they covered him with all these blankets. They had him in this heat. They sometimes poured water onto the stones. Is this sounding familiar? We have these in a lot of places, yeah? And here's the origin. And they covered him up completely. And after 20 minutes, they took him out and they threw him into cold water twice. I know some of you have already had this experience in my home where I've plunged you into hots and colds because I believe in this. This is what I do. And that's why I thought this was a wonderful story to go with water. And immediately they took him out, put him back in the sweat hole for another 20 minutes, for another 45 minutes, and then they gave him copious amounts of water to drink, water in, water out, and finally he was taken out, covered up in several blankets, and suffered to cool down gradually. Now, we do these treatments in our sanitarium, in our health retreat, because we know these actually work. We don't always do them. It depends on what the person has, and we don't do it the way they did it. We have simpler ways. We have a sauna, we have a hot tub, and we have cold bath, or we do the showers and the bathtubs, but nevertheless, we do this here. And it wasn't very long. The water treatment had worked so well that Lewis and Clark decided to try it on a nearby chief who had been unable to move either his arms or his legs for 3 years. And it worked. Wow. They fully restored him to walking, to moving, after 3 years not being able to move. So I believe that God has placed all these simple treatments for us. I'm blown away, but that's water in, water out. And that is a healing treatment that we can do in our own homes, which through the 7 weeks, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to be and maintain good health. Sunlight, vitamin D3. People think they need to go into the sun just because they need vitamin D2. Vitamin D2 is not, was always talked about, but now vitamin D3 is becoming to the forefront of everything. People are now understanding. In fact, most people probably in this room are low on vitamin D3. Why? Because we only get vitamin D3 at a very particular time of the year, and the sun has to be at a very particular place in order for us to receive vitamin D3. So basically what I'm saying is you can only get vitamin D3 once a year when the sun is at a particular place, and most people work. They come out of their offices, they jump into their vehicles, they catch a train, they catch a bus, they go home and they're indoors again. Most people are lacking vitamin D3, most. So everyone who comes to see me, I first put them on vitamin D3. Of course, I like to check, but I know most people are low. Sunlight is for healing and for growth. How do plants grow? How do animals survive? All in the sunlight. In fact, dogs are more intelligent than us. When a dog is sick, what does it do?
Hides.
It does what?
Rest and hide, no eating.
It does rest, but it eats grass, which is chlorophyll, which is what we should do, and it goes into the sun, and it just hides in a quiet spot. What do we do when we're sick? We go into a room, we close the curtains, it's dark, and then we say, can you bring me something to eat? And we get a piece of pizza. I keep coming back to the pizza because that's a fast food. Yeah. Dogs are more intelligent than us. And that's because who is taking care of the animals? It is none other than God. God is actually the one that protects his animals. He feeds his animals. He would feed us if we weren't so fearful. No jab, no job. Everyone ran for jabs because they didn't want to lose their jobs. And what's happening now? We're going to have a very sick nation. So for those of you who are jabbed in the room, I have a way of cleaning your system out. And for those of you who didn't get the jab, I'm very happy to hear you didn't. But I'm not saying you are stupid if you did get it. I know everybody was coerced and are still being coerced. My children, 3 out of 4 got the jabs, all 3 jabs. And I cried. I was so sore. They didn't listen to me. But one of them said, I will listen to you, Mum. I believe you. And he lost his job, but now he's got another job. And he's getting an even better job. You see, you will be looked after. Just have faith in whatever you do. Have faith. You know, I was watching a debate between a Christian and an atheist. And the atheist was out to slam the Christian, and the Christian said, why are we going to debate? We're both going to disagree, yet we both have faith. You have faith in what you believe. I have faith in what I believe. Why don't we just shake hands and we go on believing what we believe? Isn't that such a good way to look at it? So atheists do have faith. They have faith in what they believe. So if there's any atheists in the room, like I keep saying, I don't know you all, you have your belief, you are strong in your faith, and I'm strong in mine. So let's not argue. Let's just love each other and help each other and get along together. Sunlight, yeah? We need sunlight every single day. In fact, I ask all my patients to sit in the sun, depending on your complexions. Some I'll ask you to go longer, some I'll ask you to go shorter. Mediterranean people can go longer, and African people, South Americans, we can go longer. Asian, we can go longer. But Caucasians that are very fair, Scandinavian, there are a few of you, you need to go a bit shorter. Yeah, because the sun will beat you, and go at the right time as well. Temperance, my very favorite part of this acronym. Temperance, without a balanced life, we will fall. Temperance in all things and abstinence in everything that is not good for us. Some people say, no, temperance in everything. I say, okay, why don't you just have a little bit of marijuana now? Have a little bit of acid. Why don't you just drink a bit of alcohol, and whilst you're drinking your alcohol, have a bit of pizza, and at the end of the day, tell me how you feel. So it's not about abstinence. It's not about temperance in all things. It's about balancing our lifestyles, but temperance and abstinence together. Temperance, she told me off that my phone rang.
Only mustard contacts can call me.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that was my start contact, my staff. See, we're on the same page. Okay. So abstinence in everything that is not good for us is what we should aim for. So what is that? That is drugs, that is alcohol, that is fast foods, that is everything that is going to affect our bodies, affect our minds. Anything that's going to affect us, we need to be abstaining from, right? Including bad relationships. Toxic relationships. If you have people in your life that are toxic, you need to find a way to hold the hand, block them, and let them know that your life is all about positivity, not negativity, because they will bring you down, they will drain you. And believe me, there are many people who are extremely draining. They will suck the energy out of you. And you are trying to do the best you can. You're doing all the good things you know, and they are busy yakking behind your back, talking about you, and they are busy blunting who you are as a person. So abstinence. How about fresh air? It is a law in our bodies that we are to breathe in and out in order to maintain life. I think you're all breathing. No, I know you're all breathing. Because if you weren't, we would have had the ambulance here by now. So we need to breathe in and we need to breathe out. And that is called air coming in to our lungs, oxygenating us, our cells, giving us life. If we stop breathing, everything goes pear-shaped from there. But we are to ask ourselves the questions: which air are we breathing in? Is it pure or impure? Now this question, I have a big lecture I do on homes. If you walk into some homes, the air is so thick, you will stop in your tracks and you will go, ugh. You can barely breathe. A lot of people don't aerate their homes. A lot of people have everything closed, and their kids are constantly sick. And they go, if I open my windows, my children are going to get sick. And I say, no, your children already are sick because they're living in stale, stuffy air. As a matter of fact, in America, many studies have been done on how stale the air is in the homes, that the family members are actually inhaling molecules of disease on a daily basis. So we need to question ourselves, and it would be good for everyone to check in their homes how much air is passing through. We sleep with our bedroom windows opened. We now in burn-off season, we live in the country. I have to close my windows. I have been really struggling with headaches from the smoke. Smoke and me don't agree. So our rooms were filling up, and I was waking up at night, closing up, but too late. I've been, infected. I've got sores all in my nostrils just because it's affected me so badly. Now, we live a very clean life. We live on a very clean diet. In fact, you can't get a cleaner diet than our diet. And I'm going to talk to you about that after lunch. Our diet is very, very clean. We don't put anything into our body that we know is going to harm us. Caffeine is one of the things that when we talk about nutrition, I'm going to have to really disappoint many of you who rushed out for your morning coffee before you came here. Because if you had an apple, the pectin, and water, it would have kept you more awake than the coffee will. Believe me. I'm not looking at you because I think you had a coffee. My eyes just went to you. So, well, you let the cat out of the bag now. Even a little mini coffee is not as good as an apple and a glass of water. But anyway, rest is a law again of the human body, especially at night. So it is vital for better mental health, increased concentration and memory, a healthier immune system as well, reduce stress, improve mood, and even better metabolism. I'm trying to talk between the strikes. So rest is so important that we have been given some laws for rest, even in the Word of God. For those of you who are Bible students, we were given a day of rest, were we not? The Bible says you must rest. So on the Sabbath, some of us have different Sabbaths, but nevertheless, we must rest on the Sabbath, right? We've been given that day to rest because the Creator of our bodies knew how much we would need the rest. Rest at night. Did you know that your body only heals between 9 p.m. and midnight? That's the only time it heals. 9 p.m. at midnight. So when you go to bed always after midnight, you have missed the healing from whatever went wrong the day before. So every single day that we live, we have things that are going wrong in our bodies. We may have eaten something a little off. We may have gone through, like I said, the smoke in the wheat belt at the moment is terrible. It's really bad for people. I've been getting calls from people in the area. I'm getting severe headaches. Can you help me? And I'm talking them through the smoke at the moment. So it doesn't matter what went wrong the day before. That night, your body was created to actually heal it. I've got a fantastic presentation on your immune system and how strong it is. Your immune system can repair any damage that is not man-made. And the reason why I threw that one in is because we're going to talk about detoxing, from the vax. So we're going to talk about that. If anybody in here needs it, if you know people who need it, please steer them here because we can help them to heal their bodies because the immune system is actually suppressed. It's very compromised. In fact, it's more than compromised, it's suppressed in many of the people, and that's why we've seen heart failure. That's why we've seen suicides. People's bodies are in such shock. They don't know what they're doing. I have a 21-year-old daughter who's had 3 jabs. She's been rushed into hospital with cardiac issues. She's had clotting in her arm, and now she's got so much bleeding, they don't know where it's happening. And I'm just beside myself. She's 21, she's got a 2-year-old baby. And I am beside myself because I'm saying, if only she would have listened to her mum, she would not be in this. She doesn't work. She didn't need it. She wasn't going to uni. She's going to go to uni soon, but she said, everyone's getting jabbed, Mum. This is the way of the world. I said, yeah, and everybody's becoming homosexual too. You know, we've got to draw the line somewhere. We really got to be intelligent. That is why I am here to educate and not medicate. I'm here to educate and not dictate. I'm here to share, to show, to tell, to help. We need to help these people. They need us. I was on rest. You see how far I go off because I've had so much rest? That's what happens. I get so excited. And last but not least, we have trust. Trust in the divine power. Like I said, we all have different spiritualities that we trust in. I have to show mine. I trust in the divine power of God, but these are the laws that govern the human life. If obeyed by His grace, we shall be whole and live a health-reformed lifestyle. So you don't have to raise your hand or anything. However, if you believe that we have a Creator, that means our Creator gave us a way to live. So no matter what denomination you belong to, we all read the same book, unless you're Buddhist or Muslim or Hindu. However, I have Muslim friends and they've compared stuff I've said and they said it's the same. I know there's a lot of stuff that Buddhists do that we do. How do I know that? My husband was a Buddhist teacher for over 20 years. He ran retreats here in Perth. So I know, what he's told me and shared with me. And they do a lot of things that we do. In fact, they are very reverent, more so than we are sometimes. They're very soft and spiritual, sometimes more so than we are. We can take a page out of their book. So that is the last of the acronym.